Hello everybody, welcome to That's Football. An absolutely massive win for Manchester City in a court case. It's not the 115, but it could have big ramifications. It's interesting, last week we were talking about this ATP ruling, Associated Party Transaction ruling. There was rumours that Man City had won, then there was rumours that they hadn't. Well, apparently they have. It's been breaking in the last hour that they have. It's been announced that Man City's legal case against the Premier League over its associated party transaction rules, they've actually had two aspects of that case deemed unlawful by a tribunal. This can blow the bloody doors off the 115, but it can also blow the doors off football. However, the Premier League are saying the tribunal rejected the majority of Manchester City's challenges and endorsed the overall objectives, framework and decision-making of the APT system. So it's definitely a moving story. There are so many interpretations I've heard in the last 20 minutes, and I think the best way to do it is to start with worst case scenario and best case scenario we'll talk about. The worst case scenario here, in simple terms, is that associated party transactions, as we discussed last week, are things like Man City, Etihad Airways, Lynx, and saying that a sponsorship deal that would normally be worth 60 million will give you 600 million, inflating it because you own the company, etc. Associated party transactions. If that principle falls apart, forget about it. Football's over. Man City fans all claim a victory because it benefits their football club. But if Man City were Arsenal fans, they'd be moaning about it. Because fundamentally, it's not competitive. It's not fair. Arsenal are not owned by massively rich people who have access to other sponsorship deals that can throw into the club at inordinate, at massive levels. It will break the fabric of the Premier League. It would be potentially advantageous for someone like Newcastle, who can't get their money from Saudi Arabia into the club because of FFP and PSR. If this all fell apart, Newcastle could say, visit Saudi, £300 million shirt sponsorship a week or something like that. So it has the basis to dismantle football if it is worst case scenario. If there is, if the result of this win for Man City, whether it's big, significant or small, is that you can now have associated party transactions, free will over your club, then if you are state owned or mega rich, you can just funnel in every sponsorship you deal at whatever price you want. You can have a shirt sponsor for $1 billion. Ridiculous money will just fly into those clubs. But for clubs that don't have that type of ownership and don't have that type of wealth behind it, they're done. Because basically the Newcastles, the Man Cities and anyone else can just throw money in that they've already got, whereas other clubs that don't have that won't. So that's anti-competitive as far as I'm concerned. I don't think this is good for football. In fact, I tweeted it earlier. Man United would have been better off being bought by Qatar. Because if it's going to benefit Newcastle, it's going to benefit Man City, then you'd be better off having a similar ownership model. Because you can just pump your money in and it's the guy with the biggest wallet that wins, or the girl. So if that is what's happened, I don't think this is good for football. It's a win for Man City. And legally, they've found in their favour. But I don't think it's good for football to have clubs that can throw loads and loads of money in and others that can't. I think that's anti-competitive for the Premier League. What we're starting to hear is that it might not be that. What we're starting to hear is that the Premier League are not that bothered, that the overall objectives and framework will still stay in place. So it might not be as a severe thing. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But my overarching thought here is, and I'd love to get your comments, is we're hearing about Man City have won. We're hearing that Man City might sue the Premier League for losses, etc. Is this a power grab? Because fundamentally, I don't know what Man City get out of this. They want to win Premier Leagues in the Premier League. So by defeating the Premier League and then suing the Premier League and making the Premier League look incompetent, you still want to play in the Premier League. Is your end game to destroy the Premier League? Is your end game to boss the Premier League? Is the end game to go into a Super League? Ultimately, I don't think it's good for the game that Man City and the Premier League are at loggerheads like this, because I don't really understand what Man City are doing. If Man City are basically saying, sit down Premier League, we're more powerful than you, well, we don't want that. What we do want is fair regulation. What we do want is an ownership structure at the top of the Premier League and the clubs underneath that. So it's a weird one how this is. This is exactly what I said last week. Things won't be the same. Whatever happens at the end of all of this between the Premier League and Man City, whether it's Man City in trouble or Man City win, football's not going to be the same afterwards, is it? And I sit here going, well, look, it's a moving story. We'll have to wait and see. Literally 10 minutes ago, it looked like Man City had won and everything was going to go in their favour. Literally, an article on the BBC is saying that the Premier League is saying that that a lot of this is still in their favour. So we'll have to wait and see. But I would say that obviously Man City have scored a win here. How significant that win is, we'll have to wait and find out. How big an impact it has on the 115, we'll have to wait and find out. I get why Man City fans would be happy about it. I guess I'd be happy if I was a Man United fan and it was my club. But in a total let's take a step back way, I don't think this is good for football if rich clubs can inflate their sponsorship deals because they own the companies that they're doing them with to a level that's unrealistic and not fair to get money into their football club through the back door. That is what we're talking about Man City for the last 15 years. This is fundamentally not fair. It's anti-competitive in my opinion. And if Newcastle, a football club that doesn't make a lot of money, starts using Saudi Arabia to inflate sponsorship deals from Saudi Arabia to get money into the club, that's not fair either. And if that's the way football's going to go, then we're going to be living in a different football world, because basically everything we've learnt over the last few decades about clubs and revenue and fairness, etc., will go out the window to a model where if you've got a rich owner, doesn't matter whether 10,000... I mean, look, Bournemouth could dominate world football with an attendance of 10,000 every week if they're owned by Qatar. That's basically what this would mean. It doesn't matter about your fan base. It doesn't matter how big your revenue is historically. If you get bought by a superpower, they will put sponsorships here at ridiculously inflated levels to get money into the club to make them the best team in the world. And it'll have a massive impact on wages. Players will be the winner because everyone will just be like, I want that player, we'll give you $1 million a week, we'll give you 1.5. I don't think that's good for football. I don't think it's good for football, but we'll have to see what happens. And ultimately, it is about the story as it breaks. And if this ends up being worst case scenario, I don't think it's good for football, but we'll have to just get on with it. And if it's not as bad, then we'll have to carry on with the story that is. But it's a moving story. Man City have certainly hit a couple of wins, and they've put their statements out as well. But the Premier League are saying overall objectives, framework and decision-making of the APT system has been endorsed. It's just two aspects that Man City have won. So let's wait and see. But get your comments in below. Make sure you smash a like on the video and give us your thoughts. Thanks for watching. We will, of course, react when we get more information.